What if the siren already went off inside Allen Park and the rest of us just didn't hear it? Picture this. Lights on in the personnel wing long after midnight, coffee cups stacked like blitz packages, a tablet paused on 3rd and 1 from last January, and one name circled 3 times in red. Not a splashy press conference. Not a tweet. Just a quiet push on a quiet door, because when Detroit decides to fortify the trench, it doesn't knock, it leans. If your heart rate just spiked, good. That's not adrenaline from your timeline. That's the sound of the Lions, seeing a soft spot in the wall and ramming through it. Here's what I'm going to do for you without giving away the punchline. I'm going to lay out the chain of moves that suddenly makes perfect sense. The cap math that turns no way into wait a second. The film reasons this target fits the Dan Campbell Aaron Glenn identity, and the risk profile you have to accept when you fish in deep water. I'll walk you through the rotation ripple effects, the immediate impact on short yardage and red zone, and what this means for Brad Holmes' timeline. Stay locked, earn the headline. Timeout before the bomb drops. Hit subscribe to Lions News Fan Report. Tap the bell and smash that like. This channel is built by Detroit, for Detroit blue collar, 4th and 1, and always trench first. Let's set the stage. The Lions are playing in 2 realities at once. Reality 1, this roster is too good, too physical, and too mature to talk about next year. That means ceiling leaks now know we'll fix it in March. Reality 2, you can't spend tomorrow's picks like scratch-offs and hope the house doesn't notice. Holmes has threaded that needle for 3 years. Draft core pieces, layer vets who play with edge, and keep enough flexibility to take a responsible swing when the board blinks. Translation: if a cost-controlled, high-ceiling interior defensive lineman with all the traits you can't coach actually becomes attainable, Detroit has to be first in the hallway. Now, the news you're here for. The Lions have moved past the checking-in phase and put a concrete framework on the table to bring in defensive tackle Mazi Smith. We're not talking about a 2K trade machine screenshot. We're talking about a real structure, with real names and real draft compensation attached, designed to test the other side's appetite and Detroit's timeline. Is it signed, sealed, and on the transaction wire? No. Is it smoke built on thin air? Also no. This is structured, aggressive interest that fits the Lions' short and mid-term thesis. Call it what it is, a live possibility. Let's unpack why. Fit first, numbers later. What does a Campbell Glenn front ask from the big man in the middle? Win the A gap on Tuesday, so you can win the game on Sunday. 2 gap when asked, anchor versus. Doubles. Compress the pocket from the depth of the center's shoes and make inside zone look like wishful thinking. When Detroit has been at its best under this staff, the engine wasn't just speed off the edge. It was a nose who took the first punch, smiled, and swallowed yards. Mazi's profile length, mass, leverage potential, and that power lifter core checks those boxes. He's not a handsy swim move merchant. He's a forklift. You put a forklift next to Allen McNeil and tell edges to race to the landmark, and suddenly 3rd and 2 turns into 4th and doubt. But if we're talking grown-up football, we're talking warts too. Mazi's tape in Dallas was uneven. Pad level climbed on long drives. Rush plan drifted, and when his hands got late, NFL centers turned him. There were healthy scratch stretches that sting. So why is Detroit different? Because Detroit doesn't hand you a position. It hands you a role, a standard, and reps that make sense. The Lions don't need Mazi to be Aaron Donald. They need him to be gravity. Eat the double so the linebacker stays clean. Cancel the cutback so the safety stays high. When he plays in a phone booth with violent hands and short steps, he's a problem. You don't buy the finished statue. You buy the granite and a sculptor named Campbell. Let's talk acquisition logic. The Lions front office has been meticulous about building mid-tier salaries and preserving picks in specific windows. That's not by accident. That's how you create trade optionality without detonating the future. A conditional day 3 pick that can escalate with playtime or team success is exactly the sort of lever Holmes likes to pull. Low floor, Meaningful upside, and zero pressure to force snaps if the chemistry isn't there. In plain English, you're not paying premium for potential. You're renting space for a very specific job and offering to buy if he turns the lights on. Depth chart ripple effects matter. Drop Mazi into a rotation with McNeil and the rest of Detroit's interior, and you've got a three-man cycle that can hold gap integrity without gassing. Your edge room gets cleaner reads because the pocket can't step up and hide. Your run fits simplify for the second level. On early downs, you thicken the front and play heavy. On money downs, you kick into jet with fresh legs. This keeps the defense on schedule, a phrase that sounds boring until you remember how many playoff games are won by refusing to live in second dash and dash four dot. What about the other side of the ball? Oddly enough, this move helps your offense. Football is complementary. If your defense stops the bleeding on first down, your OC doesn't live in panic call sheets. You stay balanced. Jared Goff gets motion and play action back. The backs run at six-man boxes. And your line doesn't have to pass set through the teeth of predictable situations. It's not glamorous, but it's gospel. Good noses make good play action. There's a timing layer to all of this, too. Detroit's schedule doesn't do handshakes. The next month is a parade of trench tests that punish soft bellies. If you're going to add a space eater who loves contact, adding him before that stretch gives you live bullets to accelerate adaptation. Detroit's staff is elite at onboarding roles. Ask any midseason addition from the last 2 years. Assignment clarity plus rep discipline is how you turn a trait monster into a Sunday contributor in 2 weeks, not 2 months. Let's be clear on status one more time, because this matters. There's no official announcement from Allen Park. There is no jersey swap. There is no welcome to Detroit post. What there is, tangible movement, real talks, and a framework that says, if you're open, we're ready. That's not fan fiction. That's how grown front offices operate in September. Risks? Plenty. If the pad level issues don't clean up, you trade for a logo instead of a laborer. If conditioning isn't game ready, your snap count becomes a tell. If the technique doesn't marry the traits, you're rotating a rundown specialist and telegraphing tendencies. And the biggest risk isn't even Mazi, it's opportunity cost. Every pick, every cap dollar, and every roster spot you allocate to the interior is a resource you're not spending on swing tackle depth, a third safety, or a returner who flips fields. The NFL is choices, but there's also the vision. Picture a cold December at Ford Field. It's 3rd and 1, seasoning the balance, and the opponent wants to ISO your gap because they think they can move you. Left guard chirps, center taps his hip, QB barks a check. The ball snaps, the double team hits and goes nowhere. The pile moves backward, the clock bleeds, and the crowd gets that sound. That's the kind of play you trade for. Not a viral highlight. A pivot point. Now, parallel tracks. While the trench headline sizzles, the Lions quietly continue to churn the bottom of the roster practice squad additions with traits, special teams grinders who buy snaps for stars, and tough cuts that signal faith in the room. This staff has earned trust in those margins. The names change. The standards don't. That's how you survive the 17-week attrition war without tapping out. Coaching wrinkle. If Mazi walks through the door, I expect Glenn to lean even harder into fronts that muddy reads. Mint looks on early downs, overloads that bait audibles into numbers, and simulated pressures that bring 4 but look like 6. A true anchor lets you lie pre-snap and still win post-snap. It makes your coverage calls more honest and your blitzes more devastating because you don't have to send extra hats to stop duo. Let's hit the what ifs fast. What if it falls apart? Then nothing breaks. Detroit still has a top 10 roster, a top 5 culture, and the capital to strike later. You don't get worse by being ready. What if the price climbs? You set a walk-away number and live with it. Smart teams don't chase the chase. They chase because the math says June football gets easier. What if he pops? Then the entire NFC North has to re-scout their run game. Your third and short defense becomes a weekly storyline. And suddenly your pass rush wins half a second earlier because QBs can't step up. That half-second wins banners got my take? Blue collar honest. At a conditional day 3 price with escalators, I'm in. Detroit's identity is trench dominance. Adding a 0/1 tech with elite raw strength fits the blueprint like a glove. I want the staff to be ruthless about role definition. I want the rotation lean, and I want the conditioning bar set at December and September. No handouts, no hype. Just gap wins. If the ask creeps into real pick capital with no contingencies, I slam the brakes. We've built this the right way. Don't mortgage it for vibes. But if the deal lives in that sweet spot of value and fit, make the call, make him earn the snaps, and let the rest of the league deal with 630 pounds of interior violence. Now it's your turn. How much would you give up, realistically? Would you roll with a conditional 6 that escalates with snap count and playoff wins? Which current rotation piece would you sit to give Mazi 20 snaps on early downs? And do you think a true anchor is what this defense is missing, or would you rather see the resources spent on OL depth and a field-tilting return man? Drop your thoughts below. I read everything because this show is built by the people who wear Honolulu blue in the snow. We'll track it, we'll verify it, and we'll hold it to the same standard we always do. Detroit tough, detail first. If the paperwork hits, you'll know. Until then, remember who we are: pads popping, mouthpieces flying, and 4th and short belongs to us.